One of the most common things that I deal with when I'm going through story is anxiety. Now, there's a couple things there. One, when coaching someone through story, they enter with anxiety. One of the most common things people say is, I can't do that. They see somebody else do their story of self and they're like, I can't do that. I can't speak in front of others. I can't tell people about the things that I've been through. So they feel anxiety. And then, of course, we assure them, we reassure them, we assure them again. And then they sit down, and then their first class that they come and sit in front with me, I can see they sit there all like quiet. They try to sit 6 rows back, and I make them come sit in the front, and they sit and they're all like rigid because they don't really know me and they don't really know what's going to go happen next. That's anxiety. And so throughout the story process, throughout coaching, anxiety is a very common thing for people to experience. But one of the things I have to tell people often is that anxiety is a perfectly normal human response. I think we've become so safe and so comfortable in our world, because the opposite of anxiety would be comfort, is that we exist in a world where we buffer ourselves from anxiety. What are the things that we can do every single day so that we don't have to deal with the stresses of the world? And I don't want to really get in the definition of anxiety yet. I want that to that will come in a few seconds here, in a few minutes. But I want us to understand that we all feel this. I had students when I was teaching, this is, again, we're looking at 8-10 years ago, that struggled to come to class. Some couldn't come to class at all. They would stay home and we'd have to send home work for them because they had severe anxiety disorder, which, by the way, acronym SAD, like that's no bueno. But that feeling of anxiety of like, they would wake up and they would get so anxious about going to school, they would just stay home. And that, to me, is dangerous, that people can get anxiety to such a state that it absolutely debilitates them from leaving their own house. And me, like, going all the way back to myself, boy, in the 90s, when I had a roommate, he had a panic disorder. And so he would have these panic attacks where he couldn't sleep and he'd get really agitated. I'd come in and he'd be laying curled up underneath the table. That he had these experiences that weren't like commonly talked about, commonly communicated about, where he would just all of a sudden struggle with a panic attack. And for me, I didn't struggle with anxiety. I didn't struggle with panic attacks, not that I knew of. But I would see him and I was just baffled, like, what are you doing? Just get up and get about your day. You know, like my parents, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you know, you man or your mouse. And so I wasn't real sensitive to that. I mean, I was aware and I just kind of like stepped back and let him have his experience, but I just didn't really understand. And then I remember one day after I was done teaching, I was sitting at my kitchen table and I think I was just grading papers. And as I was sitting there, I remember my heart just started beating real fast, like I was running. It's and I remember I couldn't move my hands. I'm like, well, what is this? And all of a sudden my eyesight, it started to pull away. Like the world started to close in and I felt like I was pulling away from the world. And I'm like, my first thought was, I'm having a heart attack. Like, I'm dying. And then my brain just started racing. And then it hit me. I was having a panic attack. Because I'd seen my roommate go through it, like all of a sudden I realized, I mean, it completely was pulling me into like a paralysis. And so I just pushed myself back from the table and I slowed my breathing. And I don't remember how long it took, probably just a minute, but it felt forever, where I just brought myself back to center. And then I understood my roommate. I'm like, I couldn't imagine having that for hours on end. I mean, it literally was paralyzing. And that experience really brought me an aha about panic. Fast forward to 2020, I moved to Texas, hence my picture here. I moved to Texas. I've lived in Michigan almost my entire life, 47 years. And my family moved to Texas. There was a lot of trauma and a lot of tragedy in Michigan. For me, my life as I knew it was over. And I was moving to Texas and starting this new adventure. Now, I love the new. I get very excited about like new challenges. Today, I went into this conference, you know, anxious about the conversations, but once I'm in the new, I have a lot of fun with it. Like it's energizing for me to like learn and experience new things. And for me, that's even part of my identity. I love adventure. I love surprising my kids. I like doing new things in new ways, trying new foods. And so that to me was my identity, my personality. And so this move to Texas, yeah, it wasn't based on my own life plan. It kind of came at me from a curveball that was very traumatic. But when I got to Texas, I kind of had this mindset, like, this is a starting over point. Yeah, I'm almost 50. Yeah, I've got to start over. Yeah, I have no idea what's coming next. But I'm like, okay, mindset. This is a new adventure. This is a new journey. You know, I have my faith. I believe that God's got a plan for me. And I just need to keep walking in that place. And that was my mindset. That's what I thought I believed. And at first, things seemed to be okay. I was around my family again. I hadn't been around them a lot in the last 2 years, but I was around them. I was excited. Like, I was kind of like doing things to get things in order. Spending time with my boys again was really energizing. I was starting to plan about career. I was working on my resume. I was thinking about all the different things I could do. Did I want to go back to school? I was thinking about going back to med school to be a PA or maybe be a lawyer. So all of these things were happening that were exciting. But when I would get in the car to go do something, I would start feeling anxious. Like, I would just be by myself, you know, listen to a book or listen to the radio, and I'd be driving and I'd find, like, I would feel this flutter. Like, even now I could feel it in my chest, like something was digging into my heart. My breathing would be a little bit thing, and I would be driving and my eyes would be focused on the road. But in a way, I felt like I was scanning, like something was going to happen to me. And I'd be driving down the highway, nobody else around, and I would just feel like something bad is about to happen. And it would just keep on happening when I was driving. And it happened the whole time I was in the car. This wasn't happening for seconds. It was happening the whole time in the car. And I hated the feeling. Like, I hated it. So I kept on trying to talk myself out of it. I tried to kind of get myself out of anxiety, out of this thing that I'm like, this is anxiety. How am I feeling this? And what helped is at first I'm like, this is happening every time I'm in a car. Like, what is this about? I'd get in the car, I'd be driving somewhere and all this. And then COVID hit, right? Nobody's hiring. And all of a sudden, these episodes were becoming almost every day, every time I'm getting in the car. And it's happening regularly to the point where I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to get better. Like, this is permanent. There's something wrong with me. And I didn't talk to my wife about it. I might have mentioned, like, yeah, I'm having these hard times when I'm in the car, but I didn't really like tell her how hard it was for me. And like, even now that I'm thinking back to that time, like, it's moved from my chest into my stomach. And so I almost didn't even like going in the car. But what else would happen is I love being in nature. It would start happening when I was walking. It would happen when I'd wake up. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and then anxiety would be there. Like, what is this? But, you know, being the classic, you know, tough guy I am, I'm like, I can overcome this with my mind. And that was a very difficult time for me because I thought my life had transitioned forward, and actually it felt like it didn't transition. As a matter of fact, it felt like the pain that I had in Michigan was following me to Texas, and I wasn't ever going to be able to get rid of it. And even worse than that, it was getting worse. So I thought, like, what is this? And maybe it's PTSD or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, this might not ever get better. And this was not a feeling I wanted to have. And so what I want to talk about today is what was really happening. And then I'm going to talk about, like, how I found my way through it and the learning that's there. Because anxiety is something that we talk about externally, like as a label, is something that's out there. And we see people have anxiety. And I guarantee everyone here has experienced anxiety. Every day we have these little doses of it. Like I said, I woke up today and I felt anxiety about going to this conference and talking to new people. And so there is this feeling of it. I'm having anxiety now, talking about anxiety. And if you ever were around anxious people, they make you anxious. But the funny thing is I think anxiety becomes so normal in our day-to-day living that we forget to pay attention to it. We forget that it's there. But I'm going to show you what it is and why it's always there and what it's doing to you and for you, because there's a lot going on with this. So that was my car, by the way. I should have clicked that, but I was on Pee Wee, and Pee Wee, he comes to San Antonio, just like me, by the way, looking for a bike in the basement of the Alamo. So this was my car, still my car. Of course, that window isn't there, and there's a couple other things and many dents and bruises and bugs all in the front. But this is the car I drive around in that I'd been driving since I don't know, 2017, that I would have these anxiety attacks in. So let's go nerdy for a second here, because there's a lot going on in this picture that I really want you to understand. So cool little thing. If you push your tongue right as directly to the top of your mouth as you can, like point it, like try to make your tongue point to the top of your brain. What it's pointing to right there at the roof of your mouth, like just a little bit above the roof of your mouth, is called your amygdala. So this thing right here, this little yellow thing right in the middle, I'm pointing to it, like you can see where I'm pointing. That little yellow dot right in the middle, you can see that. That's the amygdala. And its sole job is threat detection. That's its job. The amygdala's job is to detect threats because your brain is there to protect you. Now, if you look at the little thought bubble, again, I can't do it on this thing right now, but if you look at the, let me exit here. This right here, this thought bubble. So here's the amygdala, here's this, and here's this thought bubble. The thought bubble, that outside of your brain, that's called your cortex, right? Your prefrontal cortex. And that prefrontal cortex is the last thing to develop in your brain. It doesn't fully develop, when your brain isn't fully developed until you're 26 or whatever. That's the spot, like the front of your brain. And that's job, the prefrontal cortex, is to filter your brain. And in a very simple way, is it pumps the brakes on the way you think. So when you're 15 and you make stupid choices, that's because your prefrontal cortex, the brakes don't really work real well. It's something that develops the older we get. So at 26, you're less likely to do something stupid than when you're 25. Now, with addiction, sometimes that inhibits the growth of the prefrontal cortex. So that's a whole nother thing. But in a healthy brain, at 26, your brain tells you, hey, don't do that. That's stupid. So your prefrontal cortex is trying to slow you down from doing things dumb. So it's trying to avoid you from getting hurt. Don't jump off the roof. That would be stupid. But your amygdala is constantly where that's the brake, where your brake is up here, your constant threat detection is down here, the amygdala. So in the car, when I'm driving around in the sweet 2014 Grand Cherokee, when I'm driving around in that, my amygdala is like, hey, something's wrong. It's detecting a threat. I wake up in the middle of the night, my amygdala is saying, there is something wrong. It's detecting a threat. And what it's doing is it's sending signals into the brain. So again, if we look at this, we can see it's sending signals into the hypothalamus and into the thalamus. And the hypothalamus is receiving that signal, and it's saying, like, what do I do with this? So it takes the possible threat and then goes catastrophic. So what is happening is my amygdala is saying something is wrong, and my hypothalamus is trying then to like figure out what that is. And the way it does that is it's communicating with the other parts of the brain to try to understand what the threat is. And typically, if you think something's wrong, what it will do is it will go, my word, catastrophic. It will begin to domino effect of like, my brain feels something wrong. And so then the hypothalamus is trying to fill in what that thing is. So watch those two things. Amygdala, something's wrong. Hypothalamus, this is going to be bad. And so what it does is, because the amygdala has fired, it sends on this domino effect to the rest of the brain. So the hypothalamus signals the pituitary. The pituitary signals your kidneys, your adrenals, to say something is wrong, get ready for danger. So if we think you're an animal out on the savannah and you hear a twig break, what is happening is your amygdala is always looking, it hears the twig break, and it's like, that's dangerous. That's a sign of danger. It signals the hypothalamus, and it's like, that danger could be a predator. Do you see how it magnifies it? And that predator can eat us. Well, if it can eat us, we got to be ready to run. And so ready to run means signal the kidneys, the adrenal glands. And what the adrenal glands do is they release three main chemicals. And one of these, I'm sure you've heard of a few of these. One is called cortisol. You don't have to remember this. It's not on the quiz. One is called cortisol. One is called norepinephrine. And one is named epinephrine. And you know epinephrine better as adrenaline. So let's just think about cortisol, which is called the stress hormone. So anxiety becomes stress. Stress means heart rate up, blood flowing, release sugar. We got to book it. We getting out of here. And so cortisol is like, get ready. And then epinephrine is like, get the engines going, right? It amps everything up. So you got adrenaline, right? You can pick the car off the baby type of it. Right? It builds that energy up, and it's like, all right, it's a fight or flight response. Okay, so that's the pathway. But I want to take us all the way back to anxiety. Anxiety is not a cognitive thing. It's not your brain thinking about what's dangerous. What it is it's a constant state that your brain is saying something is wrong. It's firing. Anxiety is your amygdala firing, saying that there is something dangerous. And then your hypothalamus taking that and sending that signal to the body. You don't know what it is. You don't know what it is. But what is happening is your body is preparing for it. So imagine if you get a text from somebody you care about. So let's say a brother, a sister, like a sibling or a friend, and they're like, hey, I'm going to call you later. I got some hard news to tell you. I got some bad news. What is going to happen if you really imagine that? You know, what's going to happen is your body immediately is going to get anxious. You're going to feel like, well, what's wrong? What could this be? And the immediate thing is your brain is going to start catastrophizing. You think of someone you love, sends you a message and said, hey, we got to talk. I've got some bad news. And then you call them and they're like, yeah, I didn't win the lotto. You'd be like, the hell? What the hell is that? But the thing is notice how your brain, without knowing what it is, starts to map out what it is. Because that's what our brains are doing. It's taking a threat and then it's narrating it. I heard a twig break. It could be a predator. Get ready. But even when the threat isn't real, anxiety perceives that it's real. So when I talk about driving around in my car, what is happening is the trauma that I went through in Michigan stayed with me. This is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Stress means your body is under a constant state of stress because anxiety is the signal that something is dangerous in the world. So I'm driving around in my car, listening to music, not really paying attention, and something deep in my brain, not my thinking. I'm not thinking about anything because I'm an idiot. But deep in my brain, that amygdala is signaling something's dangerous still. Beware. I know you've all experienced this because anyone who's driving and sees a cop immediately feels anxiety. I mean, you could be going 10 under the speed limit, which you should be, especially you parents out there. Okay, you see the police car, you feel anxiety, and your brain's like, oh my God, they're going to pull me over. Now, every car on the road is thinking that same thing, but of course we personalize it because the anxiety becomes like panic because the amygdala triggers the hypothalamus, and then we drive and then we're like, okay, how fast am I going? I'm going to slow down. I was only going 30, but now I'm going to go 10. And so our brain is mapping to try to solve the problem of anxiety. So the thing that is cool about this is it's showing us that our brain is looking for problems where we don't. And again, when you're an animal in the savannah, you want it doing that for you. My brother actually called me today and he goes, do you think a predator is more intelligent or a prey? That was his question to me. So something that hunts or something that gets hunted. And I go, well, look at it. It's always the hunter, unless it's a vegetarian. But things like animals, like humans, octopi are very intelligent, show high intelligence, and chimpanzees, the higher apes, they show intelligence. Yeah, generally not prey. They're usually predators. And so the idea is like, yeah, if you're a prey animal and you have to think, it's going to slow you down. So our amygdala is a remnant of our history that says, there is danger, react quickly. So now we kind of got anxiety down, right? It's a uncontrolled response to an uncertain danger. Now, just to clarify this, because a lot of people use fear and anxiety the same. They're not the same. So even in story, and we'll talk about this, I'll show you this a little bit later. When you say, oh yeah, I was driving around, I wasn't feeling fear. I was feeling anxiety. And what is the difference? Anxiety deals with the unknown, uncertainty. Well, what's that bad call about? Your boss says, hey, we need to talk later. Well, what's that about? Threat, right? It's not, I'm getting a raise. That's a threat. Fear is, I know the problem. Fear is like, what you're afraid of. I'm afraid of snakes, or I'm afraid of heights. I'm afraid of a thing in specific. Anxiety is fear of the unknown. Fear knows what it's afraid of. It's identifying that. So now that we have anxiety, we kind of understand fear and we understand what the brain's doing, because I think this is really important for us to understand how to confront this. What I want to take you a little bit deeper into is like how our body responds to that. So it comes in, right? We have our sensory experiences created by the mind. Understanding that what I'm physically experiencing can create anxiety. You know, I just got a text that says I need to talk, or it could be something that I imagine. I can just imagine it. Now, when do we use our imagine? Look at these thoughts, images, prediction, memories, stories. So when we're looking at this, if it could be a story that causes anxiety. Think about any horror movie you've seen. You know what it is? The girl goes into the shower in the creepy house, even though she got a call from someone saying she's going to murder her. And she's like, oh, this is a great time for me to shower. So she goes, gets naked, gets in the shower. You know, the lights go off. The music gets creepy. That's anxiety. The movie Jaws is all about anxiety. What is underneath the water is unknown. Well, I'm afraid of sharks. Yeah, but the anxiety is we don't know where that thing is. Anxiety is about the unknown. And this idea that our brain is creating experiences. So as I'm telling this story about driving around after I moved to Texas, my body is feeling the anxiety. I literally described what my body was going through. And so our brain takes in all this data, real or imagined, and what it does is it enacts one of two systems in our brain. Now, you know, again, you don't have to quiz this. I'm not going to give you a biology test at the end of this. Parasympathetic deactivation, right? It's not a threat. Shut it down. Look at what it is. Your body goes into rest and digest. So it conserves energy. It calms down. Deactivation, deact. It slows itself down. It releases opioids and oxytocin. Oxytocin makes you feel safe, belonging, like when someone gives you a hug, oxytocin. And you know what opiates is? They make you feel not like they take care of pain. So you feel rest, relaxed, you feel calm, right? And then you feel safe, you feel belonging, oxytocin. And so you feel at ease, inner peace, and calm. There's no threats. So you feel comfortable in your house, oxytocin. You feel comfortable when someone you love holds you, oxytocin, right? You can simply hold someone's hand that you care about, not some weird stranger. That would probably cause anxiety. But what happens is you immediately feel that feeling. So when you feel that feeling of warmth and belonging, connection, you feel loved. Like working in addiction, a lot of times, like I ask people, why do you take opioids? Pain relief, and it's when I feel loved. Like it makes them feel this sense of connection. That's what happens when our brain does not feel anxiety. So remember when I said, I asked earlier, like, when do you feel anxiety? When do you feel anxiety? And the thing is I could ask that the other question is, when do you feel safe and loved? And if you struggle to answer that question, it means that your body is constantly leaking cortisol. It's constantly in a state of anxiety. And so you have to pay attention, not just when do you feel anxiety, because you might think stress is anxiety, but stress is the amped version of that, or I feel fear. No. Anxiety is a state where you don't feel comfortable. So when do you feel comfortable? Laying on the couch with my family watching a movie. Good. That means there's no anxiety there. But any other time you're not feeling that, it means you're in a state of anxiety. So when your brain believes there is a threat, driving around in the car, going to a conference where you have to talk to people, starting a new job, starting a new class, asking somebody out, getting called into the principal's office, getting a text saying we need to talk. What happens is your brain immediately detects that as a threat. And what happens is your body in that moment of uncertainty is going into fight, flight, or freeze. And that releases, I've already said this, cortisol and adrenaline. I'm going to talk about cortisol more. Adrenaline, you know, like, oh yeah, we got to get going. And then it experiences threat, on guard, stress increases, anxiety increases. So you're in a state of anxiety. And now with the cortisol release, your body is in stress mode. Now, again, that is a defense mechanism against a threat. If there is a real threat, then you're going to feel anxious. You know, you get in a fight with someone you care about, anxiety, stress, anger. But all your emotions and those things are going to come out. You're going to feel that anxiety because what is this and where is this going? It's a threat. We are supposed to respond to this. But remember, this is a yes or a no thing. You're either comfortable or you're anxious. And like I said, what I remember is being in this car. Why is it that when I'm driving in this car by myself that I'm feeling anxiety? That doesn't make sense. Let's take it a step further. I can speak. It's been a long day. Amygdala, something's wrong. Threat detected. Real or imagined? It's imagined. My amygdala is just picking up something is wrong. Something is out to hurt me. There is a danger out there, but I can't detect it. So what my body does, even though there is no perceived threat, right? This is either these two at the top. What happens is, now again, you don't have to read all this, but I want to show you the impact this has. What your body starts doing is releasing a constant state of cortisol. If you think about your day, think about 12 hours of your day, and let's say 18 hours you're awake. Think about, of those 18 hours, how long of those 18 hours are you truly comfortable? Maybe you're just a really chill person, and 17 out of those 18 hours, you're just pretty chill. Well, that's still an hour of anxiety. And I would argue that most of us aren't chill for 17 hours a day. So what we are experiencing for a lot throughout our day is anxiety. And if we're feeling anxiety, our body, even if we're not detecting it, we're just not comfortable. I'm not anxious, I'm just not comfortable. If you're not comfortable, that's anxiety. What is happening is your body is flooded with cortisol. And cortisol is preparing your body for fight or flight. So you're in this constant state of, am I about to get eaten? And so when we look at this, you can see the negative effects it has on the right, but I put the one on the left. I know it's really hard to see, but what I want you to understand here is what's going on here. It's many of the same things, but look at what's impacting, what cortisol impacts. Depression, headaches from your brain. Cortisol is physically impacting your brain. It's depleting it of water. It's depleting of what it needs so that you have headaches. But it's also blocking the positive emotions, comfort, oxytocin. So what is happening is because you're not getting the positive hormones, over time, you're going to feel depressed. And remember, this is catastrophic thinking that will come. And then we see heartburn. We see risk of heart attack. We see pounding heart, rapid breathing. All of that is because your body is in fight or flight. The weakened immune system, high blood sugar. Let's look at those. Weakened immune system. Well, why? Well, take the energy away from the immune system. Your digestive system, your immune system, your fight or flight response. You only have so much fuel in your body. You can only direct that in one place. When I was a kid, parents like, you can't eat and go swimming because your body can't digest and swim. So you're going to do one or the other. And so the thing is this is true that your body only has so much energy and it has to direct it. So if you're in fight or flight, if you're dealing with a lot of anxiety, your immune system is going to drop. Probably why Haley and Brenda are sick. It's all right. You can blame your kid, Brenda. But look at the other things with this: high blood sugar, high blood pressure, increased heart rate. These are all your circulatory system and your respiratory system. So your body is trying to get oxygen and sugar to your muscles because it thinks of fight or flight. But again, if there's no danger, you're preparing for a fight or a flight that's not coming. So you're flooding your system with things that it doesn't need. So you'll see where this comes in here. It's on here. I know I saw somewhere white gain in the face of the midsection. So you're getting weight gain in the face in here. Why? Because your body's pumping out sugar. It's into the system because it's trying to distribute energy, but you're not using the energy. So what does sugar become? It becomes fat. So your body is getting fed. Fertility problems. It inhibits sexual drive, but also the ability to get pregnant. It messes with both men with erectile dysfunction and women with their menstrual cycles. And so when the body is under high stress, like in training for the Olympics, like those things will just shut down. It creates serious problems. So there's the low sex drive, missed periods, tense muscles. Like cortisol is doing all of these things, right? Your muscles are always tight. You're feeling stressed. Or even when people are like, oh my God, work is so stressful. Google a picture of stress. You're going to see these things physically on something. So again, I'm talking about what cortisol is doing to the body. But if we follow the bouncing ball, the amygdala thinks that there's a danger. It doesn't have to be real. I'm driving in the car and the amygdala is telling me like I'm under attack. anxiety in the brain triggers the hypothalamus in the pituitary in the adrenal glands to release cortisol. And if we're constantly under a state of imagined attack, if we're constantly anxious, what is happening is our body is constantly being flooded with these things, blocking the good, and the body is under this constant state of stress. In your car, I don't know if you have this, but if you pay attention, there's that RPM line, and it's green, it's green, it's green, it's green, and then it goes red. Well, imagine that as anxiety. It's like, okay, I'm cool right here. This is no big deal. But then all of a sudden we just tilt up into that red line. And that red line is where anxiety is overwhelming us. So when I teach story, this is one of the things that I classically clumb to, is because there is this thing that we deal with a threat, right? Oh, there's a saber-toothed lion. You can fight, I'm going to flight. That's the physical response of the body. You can see, look at, he's tense, his eyes are wide, right? He's shaking. Even in the picture, it's showing what cortisol does to the body. Same thing with the other one. And his muscles are prepared to run. Where this happens in story, let me break this down here real quick, is right here. We live in this world where everything is built on the patterns of the past. What does comfortable mean? It means predictable. Oh, I'm really comfortable around this person. Yeah, because you know them. So when you know people, right? I got to hang out with Curtis and Nikki today. I'm around them all day. Comfortable. I know them. I know what they're like. I know I can trust them. I know their sense of humor. I know what they value. I know stories about them. So like when I'm with them, I feel comfortable. When someone new walks up and is all like, hey, I'm Bob, I'm like a bit of anxiety because I don't know them. I don't know how they're going to react to me, what I'm going to say. I don't know their sense of humor. I don't know their values. I don't know their intentions. And so as soon as I hit this little bit of unknown, whoop, my brain says anxiety. A little bit of anxiety meeting new people. What's one of the first things we do when we meet people? We introduce our name and then we shake their hand. Hey, Bob, I'm Aaron. And what happens? By making physical contact, oxytocin is released. We get a little bit more comfortable. Imagine going to shake someone's hand and they're like, all of a sudden your anxiety would begin to peak. Why is that person not doing that? Now, if they're like, oh, I don't shake hands, I'm sick. But if they're just like, I don't want to shake your hand. Like what would happen is like now you're even more uncertain and anxiety levels would rise. Cortisol would increase. So this story circle, it's really framed around the feeling of anxiety. This word threshold here, the threshold is the anxiety threshold. So this place of predictable, why does McDonald's sell billions? Because no matter what McDonald's you go to, it's predictable. If I get a cheeseburger at McDonald's, I know what I'm getting. If I go to a new restaurant, I don't know if their burgers are good or not. Now, if I have a friend there and like, oh, their burgers are really good here, now I'm not as stressed about it. But when I'm in a new place on a new menu, I don't know. So what's good here? Like the idea is the uncertainty creates anxiety of choice. So this space of choice is like, do I do this or not? So meet someone new, shake their hand, less anxiety. Don't shake their hand, more anxiety. Go to a new restaurant, don't know what's good, anxiety. Someone there says, hey, the burger's good, less anxiety. McDonald's is the same wherever you go. Wherever you go, McDonald's is going to be the same. And I know some of you are going to be like, oh, bad McDonald's. Yeah, but you've eaten McDonald's dozens of times. And 90% of the time, it's the same thing. You might not like it. It might not be good, but it's the same. And that's why fast food is predictable. So people know what they're going to get. It's a safe bet. So whatever your fast food of choice, Taco Bell, Chick-fil-A, whatever that fast food is that is your go-to, it's because it's the safest bet. If you go to Taco Bell and you get a Taco Bell Grande and it has a tooth in it, guess who's not going to Taco Bell again soon? Because now it's disrupted what is safe. As a matter of fact, it's so unsafe, you're going to tell everyone there was a tooth in my Taco Bell. And me even saying that right now, you're probably like, yeah, I'm not getting Taco Bell for a while. Because that disrupts this. A few years ago, it's probably about 10 years ago, there was a health, like people got E. coli or something when they ate Chipotle. And all of a sudden, Chipotle, whoosh, went down. Now, they did a lot to rebuild their brand and get their credibility back. But the thing is like, oh, I could get really ill if I eat this. So what happened is, even though the odds were very slim, probably one of the safest places to eat after you got, once they get found in coli, they're going to be extra clean. But guess what? Now it's like, nope, that could be dangerous. That causes anxiety. That is a threat. And so the unknown, the uncertainty creates anxiety. When I moved to Texas, I was driving in a car. Somehow my brain saw the world as unpredictable. My last 2 years have been unpredictable. Living in a new state was unpredictable. Living in a new house was unpredictable. Not having a job was unpredictable. COVID hitting in 2020 made things even more unpredictable. And so my brain was like, everything was a threat. Everything was a threat. And it didn't know how to cope with it. And so the challenge becomes is, well, then what do we do with this? But like I said at the beginning, our natural instinct with anxiety is like, yeah, I don't want to feel that. I didn't want to feel it. So when I feel anxiety, oh, yep, Curtis, Nikki, I don't want to go to the conference today because, I feel a little anxious about it. I don't want to go to school today because I feel anxious. I don't want to interview for that job or even apply for that job because I feel anxious. So anxiety always tells us, don't go where you don't know. Stay where it's safe. And so what we're looking at here is like, well, then how do I stop myself from going in the unknown? Well, you don't. You've got to go into the unknown, which means anxiety is understandable. But the thing is you have to be willing to go where you don't want to go, because living with anxiety and not confronting anxiety is very dangerous. As a matter of fact, it's very almost deadly. I'm going to tell a story about how anxiety killed two guys. Well, killed one. Two guys go, David and Rafi, they're going to go camping. And one of them is going to die because of anxiety. And so I'm going to paint that picture for you because I want us to see that anxiety is destroying the outcome. It's telling you that there's danger out there, so don't move. Well, there's lions out there, so I can't go out there because those lions could eat me. So what do? I stay in. I stay in the known. I stay up here in my known world. But that doesn't do it. So when I taught survival, my very first lesson to kids in survival was about David and Rafi. Because when kids go into survival, now these are high school kids, they were all egotistical. Because they're all like, oh, I can survive. I'll be fine. Oh, my God, I'm fine. Nothing ever bad is going to happen to me. Because we got cars and McDonald's. So, life is good. I've got air conditioning and I have heating. I've got indoor plumbing. I am very comfortable in the world. So out there, it can't be that hard. And they don't think. And so I tell the story of these guys, David and Rafi. They're two college graduates. They're best friends for a long time. They decide to go for this overnight camping stay in Rattlesnake Canyon. And so they spend the night out there. They cook up hot dogs. They hang out. They have a good old time. They go to bed. They wake up. And when they wake up, they kind of got turned around, which can happen when you don't have street corners and street signs. So they're out in the middle of nowhere without any signs. I know this one shows a sign, but they're out camping into the wilderness. And when they wake up, instead of going to the left, they end up going to the right. And they walk away from their campsite and they spend the day walking and they're trying to find their car. They can't find their car anywhere. And they've hiked for so long that their brains, they start getting anxious because they'll realize they don't know where they are. And they're out in the desert. They've eaten their food. They don't have a lot of supplies. And so they're like, holy crap. So they walk back to their original campsite. They get there and they kind of start going like, what are we going to do? We're lost out here. We don't know where to go. We have limited supplies. We don't have any water. And we're in the desert. We're going to die here. And all of a sudden, that anxiety of they don't know where they are became we were going to die. And their thoughts went immediately from anxiety to death. And so they made a suicide pact. And then the one, I can't remember which way it is, I think Rafi ends up killing David or vice versa. But he ends up killing him, burying him, leave him there. And then the next morning, what do you call them? The security, the nature preserve people, the security. I don't know what the word is for them. But they show up and they're like, hey, where's the other guy? And he's like, oh, he's buried over there. And they're like, what? And when my students would read this article, they're like, that's crazy. How? One, they weren't that lost because they found their way back to the camp. These guys just must have been idiots. No. It all was the amygdala telling their brain that they were lost. And because they were lost, they were going to die. And they were going to die of thirst. They were out there for one night. And their brain had tricked them all of these things. It was 90 degrees. It's 90 degrees outside here right now. But their brain is like, nope, we're going to die. From anxiety to death. And the challenge that I have for you is, a picture of Ferrari. There's the car I should have been driving. Although if I was driving that car, that would create a lot of anxiety on the road. But the trick in my car was for me to re-narrate that story, to look at the story and reshift back to what was really going on. So instead of like my anxiety causing me to believe that the world was going to end and that nothing was going to get better, even though I was really trying to hold it inside, what I began to do is get in my car and I would just greet it. I would just be like, all right, anxiety, let's go for a car ride. I guess we're going to Costco today. Got to wear a mask. You know, like, okay, here's what we're going to deal with. Oh, you're not going to ever get a job. You know, you're going to be stuck in this forever. You can't provide for your family. I'm like, well, what I can do is, I can't answer that, but what I can do is apply this. So every time I felt that feeling of anxiety, I just greeted it. I just said, hello, there you are. I see you. And I get in the car and I say, all right. I would just acknowledge it. And then I would see, I would ask myself, what do you think that you're afraid of? And then my brain, the fear, would identify it. Remember, anxiety is an unknown, fear is a known. So I'd be like, what am I afraid of? What am I feeling anxious about right now? What is the anxiety directed towards? I would name the fear. I was afraid I wasn't going to work. I was afraid I couldn't rebuild my family. I was afraid that I wasn't going to belong in Texas. I was afraid of the future. Right. And then I named it. And then the anxiety would be like, okay. And then I would slowly work towards that. I would work towards whatever the fear was so that the anxiety would know that it was okay. And so when I drive in the car, it became my place of anxiety was going to be there. And I did not like the feeling, but I welcomed it because I had to teach my own brain that it was okay. It was okay that the car was a safe place. This journey was going to be safe. And I just let day by day be that. And I'm going to tell you the truth. It started to go down right away. Like it started to become less, but it kept happening. It was happening a year or two later. That's why I believe I had PTSD, because it would just randomly just come up. I could be doing something very simple. I could be sitting at the computer and all of a sudden I have an anxiety attack. And I'm like, okay, there you are. Some way, somehow my brain was thinking I was in danger and I just let it walk through. And so what I want you to see in this cycle here, in this circle, is that anxiety is telling us there's a danger. But instead of ignoring it, instead of not wanting to feel it, what we have to do is step into it. We have to name it and begin to ask it. Because this is what I said to my son the other day when he was telling me he was struggling with some anxiety about his life. He's starting school again. He's starting a new health regimen. He's making these new choices to step out there, and he was feeling a lot of anxiety about it. I said, anxiety is a doorway into the unknown. But in the unknown is all your potential. All your potential is in the unknown. So anxiety says, I don't know what's going to happen. But by not knowing, it means growth is there. Because if you know what's going to happen, let's say you're watching a movie and you know what's going to happen. That's not exciting. But it's the moments in a movie where you sit on the edge and be like, I don't know what's going to happen next. That's where that anxiety becomes excitement. It moves you towards the thing. Anxiety is like, there's danger. But if we can flip it to excitement, shift it to excitement, we can move towards the very thing that anxiety is preventing us from. I used to be terrified of roller coasters. And then eventually I'm like, I got to get on this. Truth be told, I liked a girl who was getting on the roller coaster. I didn't want to be the chicken, so I got on the roller coaster. I faced my anxiety, and then it was so much fun. It was so exciting. The anxiety became excitement to take on a challenge, to do something new. And that's the thing. We are either going to be ruled by anxiety or we're going to be challenged by excitement. And anxiety is this doorway to the unknown. Whatever you're going through, whatever new journey you're on, which we're all on one, that fear and anxiety, the fear of the unknown, that is anxiety. That's going catastrophic. Yeah, but what if this doesn't work? And what if, and what if, and what if? Just calm it down and be like, yeah, but what if it's awesome? Find the excitement in it. Find the adventure. Stories can be horrible, right? They could be a terror movie, like where the monster's coming in when you're taking a shower and the lights go out and the creepy music comes on, because it's, oh my God, I don't know what's happening. It's death. Or you walk in the house, the lights don't go on, and then all of a sudden they go on and all your friends are there and it's a surprise party. It's like that fear, that anxiety can lead you to something that is death, but it also can lead you to something that is amazing and new. Now, again, I'm not telling you to jump off roofs, but what I'm saying to you is this, is that when anxiety comes to you, it is a challenge for you to grow. Because if you can't confront anxiety, you will not grow. I am no youngster, but and I don't like anxiety. So there's a lot of reasons for me to not want to do things. But the truth of the matter is, like even making these videos or talking to you, like these are things that are new for me, and I just got to try them so that I can get more comfortable, more oxytocin from them, and way less cortisol. Because this is how I'm going to grow. And this is how you're going to grow too, by doing the things that you've never done before. So here are the 3 things that when I really thought about what I learned about anxiety and that Jeep, not that Ferrari, but that Jeep was 1. With your anxiety, you got to acknowledge it. You got to, like, I know you're there. Even knowing, like this morning, that like I woke up and I knew I had to go to this conference and talk to people. I'm like, all right, anxiety, I know you're there. Hello. Because when we ignore it, it can do its job. It can go to the catastrophic and you don't tell anyone. So you just sit in it and then cortisol is being released. By acknowledging it, that cortisol immediately is going to begin to drop down. Then the second thing is like I said in the car, what are you about? I try to name it. I go from acknowledging it to naming it. What are you about? What are you afraid of right now? Name it. Switch the anxiety into a fear. What are you afraid of right now? Well, what if I go there and nobody wants to talk to me? What if I go there and I don't know how to communicate about story? What if I go there and people think my idea is stupid? Like, what about that? Well, now I name my fear. Do you believe that? Do you believe that what you don't have something to say? Do you believe that your idea is stupid? No. Okay. Now I name it. And fear then, because once I have fear, I can then find the courage to confront it. And there's the third one. Once I name the fear, I can choose courage. I can slow down, face the unknown, and step into it. Step into my next part of my story. I know everyone out there, every one of you, is dealing with some type of anxiety. There is uncertainty in all of our lives. As much as you want to make your life predictable. That's called OCD, by the way. OCD is if I do this, the world will be okay. If I touch this table 3 times before this presentation, I'll be okay. Yet that's not true, right? Because an external factor can't make your internal factor go. It gives you a dopamine hit, but it doesn't solve the anxiety. Anxiety is only solved by confronting the problem. You got to acknowledge that it's there. You got to allow yourself to feel it. Oh, I'm feeling anxious. 2, you get curious. So you're like, okay, name it. I need to name the fear, because once I name it, anxiety is fear. And fear has this, am I really afraid of what's going to happen next? And if the answer is yes, then I get to choose courage. Choose courage. I just bring it back down, face the unknown, step forward. Because now anxiety is realizing it's not a threat, right? I'm out in the woods and I hear the stick crack. And I look to the side and, it's my wife. Maybe I'm terrified then. No. Like now it's like, okay, I know who's there. It's like when you're in an uncommon place, you ever somewhere like, and you don't know anyone and you're all anxious. Let's say you go to a party or something, or you're at a gathering and you're like, I don't know anyone here. And then all of a sudden you see someone and immediately you're like, oh my God, they're here. And what you feel then is oxytocin. The anxiety goes down and the oxytocin, and you run up and you give them a hug. That feeling when you're waiting for someone at the airport and you're looking, anxiety. And as soon as you see them, you run and you embrace them, oxytocin. What an amazing feeling. But those two go hand in hand, anxiety and comfort. You have to have them both, because if you don't know anxiety, you won't know comfort. And if you don't know comfort, you're only going to be dealing with anxiety. So you got to find that space. So I'll say it one more time. You're driving in your car, you start feeling anxious. All right, anxiety, there you are. I got it. I feel you. And then I ask myself, what could be causing this? And maybe I don't know, but I just ask it like, all right, what could be causing this? I literally ask myself that so that my brain will try to answer it. I'm afraid that I'm going to look like a fool. Okay, maybe you will, but we're going to go there anyway, and we're going to do it. Chose courage. So those are the 3 things I want you to do. I really wanted you to get a feel for anxiety, that it is a real thing. It's a real physical thing that has serious consequences. Too much oxytocin is going to make you sick. It's going to break down your body. You can't live under that much stress. And the opposite is also there, that when we do confront it and we name it and we choose courage, we can then take that back. It isn't going to happen the first time. It's not going to happen the second time. But over time, your body and your brain are going to do this. I love being in my car. I love driving in my car. So I don't want that to be a place of anxiety. But based on what I was feeling a few years ago, I didn't want to be in my car. But because I kept doing it and because I kept on choosing courage, now I love driving again. And so that's the things that we want to do. We want to learn our stories and we want to grow. And the only way to grow in your story is to go into the unknown. That's why we love adventure. So live the adventure. Get out there and do that. Got it? Good.